Hi everyone, welcome to this Playwright automation series in C Sharp. In this first video, I'll explain what's Playwright, how it's different from Selenium, installed in a brand new C Sharp project, and finally we will write our very first test that opens Google and checks the page title. So we just get familiar with what stuff Playwright does offer. So exactly what is Playwright? Playwright is a modern test automation framework created by Microsoft. It allows us to automate web browsers, not just Chrome, but also Firefox and Safari through WebKit. As you can see here, it is also cross-platform, which means you can run it on Windows, Mac, and Linux. It also multi-language. Playwright supports .NET, C Sharp, Node.js, Python, Java, JavaScript, and TypeScript. Now, a lot of people ask how this is different from Selenium. Let me quickly show you. Selenium has been around since 2011. It's very popular because of its big community and ecosystem. But Selenium often requires like explicit weights, additional libraries to handle complex cases. Playwright is newer, released around 2020, and it comes in with an auto weight built-in. So these are the auto weights that's been built in. You don't need any extra library or anything. So that means when you tell Playwright to click a button, it waits until the button is ready automatically. It also has built-in trace video recording and its own API testing, as you can see right here. So it does have its own assertion library, deals with alerts, confirms prompts, all those stuff. You can take care of the frames. So it does provide tons of new things. Especially the good one is where you run your test and it records the test for you so you can watch back or whatever you want to do. So think of Playwright as Selenium's modern cousin, faster, cleaner, built with today's testing need in mind. One more thing, you will notice almost everything in Playwright is asynchronous. That's because browser operations are I/O bound and can take time, like waiting for a page to load by using async and wait. Playwright keeps our code non-blocking and efficient. One of the requirements on this course, you need to have Visual Studio installed, or in this course, we'll be using Visual Studio as our IDE. So let's directly jump in and create our first project. I will say Playwright demo. We'll be using .NET 8 as our framework. So our first project is created. Let's look at it. We have by default a CS program.cs. That's the default class that's created. And our cs.proj shows like, okay, what's the output type, what framework we're targeting. So this is where when we install the packages or stuff like this, that's where it comes in, shows in the csproj.com. So it's not .com, sorry, csproj file. And so first thing we need is to install the Playwright NuGet. And we go here and we install Playwright. Select our project, Playwright demo. right now it's installing, and it's installed the latest version of 1.55.0. And let's go to our program.cs right now. All right, before we start writing our code, we need one more thing to do here, and that's basically installing the browsers. All right, let's just click twice this. Let's see. So we'll see. I'm rebuilding the project since I encountered this issue. Let's make sure that we have this file in there in our project. So I have ben debug.net 8. Okay, cool. This file exists. So we are good with this one. Now we're coming back, and then I will go ahead and remove this. And then right now here. So this should kick off and start downloading the browsers. As you can see, now we're able to see and see what's downloading. So basically what it happens here, it checks your Playwright version, it downloads the supported browser engines that match the Playwright library version. So Chromium, Firefox, and WebKit that we will be using for Safari or whatever. So it stores these downloads, the browsers, in the under user right here. So if we see once it downloads it in the locals, if I search for there's something called MS Playwright. So here you go. Here it downloads all those browsers and engines that we need for our test to run. So now with installation of this one, as you can see, we're done. We can start looking into an example for us. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change this class to be public. Even that doesn't need it. I'm gonna delete this because we need a static method, and I'm gonna do for sync and tasks main. Even though the Visual Studio is smart enough already to figure out that, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. But here I'm gonna create, the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create an instance of the Playwright. So using var Playwright equals await gives us time to make sure it creates the Playwright instance. So I'm gonna go Playwright .async, but I'm gonna change this to capital P, and here we're gonna import the usings for Microsoft Playwright. Now, once the instance of the Playwright is created, I'm gonna go ahead, tap this, and create an instance of the Chromium browser. So what this actually does here for us, this creates the engine and creates the instance of the Chromium launch. Before I continue, I'm gonna show you a diagram regarding Playwright. Think of this like opening the Chromium application on your own computer when you say, launch browser. It is heavy to start because it has to load the whole browser engine, allocate memory, and create communication channels. So normally we don't want to launch a brand new browser for every test because that will be very slow. That Playwright have a solution for that, and that's called um, browser context. You think of context as a completely separate user profile inside the same browser. Each context have its own cookies, cache, and local storage. So by saying that, this means right here, if we see when we say Playwright Chromium launch async, that basically creates the engine for us. And then on the same Chromium engine that's running on the process, we can create multiple context, and context is also a separate browser. And each of the contexts have its own cookies, cache, and local storage. That means if I log in into Gmail in this context, I'm not logged in inside another context here. They are fully isolated from each other. The really nice thing is that creating a new context is much faster than launching a whole new browser because it reuses the same running browser process and it just spins up a fresh profile. So in practice, the best pattern is launch one browser per worker and then create one context per test. So finally, we come here. We will do quickly an example right there, but I'm going to explain page 2. Inside each context, we have page. A page is just like a tab. So if I show you here, this is one tab, this is another tab, and this is another tab. So each tab represents a page. Based on this diagram, so one browser process can have multiple contexts, and each context can have multiple pages. I think with the example, we will be much more clear in this one. So let's start with our test here. Go back here. So now we have launched our browser. And then here, I'm going to say, this will be something like this. I'll say context 1. I will say var context 1. Oh, wow, this is so smart. It already figured it out. And next 2. So I'm going to say, hey, I want to create here we're creating a new contest and we're naming it context 1, and we're saying page 1 var awaits context 1 dot new page. So it gives us a new tab. And then here we say await page dot go async, and I will basically say google.com. I'll go with www.google.com. So this goes to Google and it launches the page. Now here at the bottom, I will say context 2 equals to var context 2 var this, and just go to bing.com. That's perfect. Now here, I'm going to run this test as a debug so we can see in detail what's happening. Here, I'm creating a new instance of the Playwright, and here I am launching the Chromium browser, basically creating the browser engine and everything. And now here I'm creating the context 1 and say, hey, give me a page, and then it says page.go async to google.com. So here you go. Google is opened and now one browser is running. And then now here, when I run this, sorry, I pretty much closed this. I'm going to rerun this quickly. My bad. I shouldn't have closed this. Okay. I need to put something at the end of this one. My bad. Like, sorry for the pain. I'll restart this. Let's go step by step. And then say launch the first one. All right, here. So now if you see, we have two browsers open here. So briefly to clear everything. First, I created context 1 and it opened Google, and then context 2 that opens Bing. Even though both pages are running in a separate windows, they are actually inside the same browser process. And the important part is that they don't share cookies or session. So my Google login in one context won't leak into Bing page in another context. This is how Playwright gives us test isolation without the heavy cost of launching new browsers for every single test. So I'm going to continue with the test, stop the test here, and now we're going to do a complete test where we navigate to Google and just get a page title and do an assertion and close the browser at the end. So we're going to here, we're launching the browser, going to google.com, and I want to say var. All right, let's make it good, looking good. Var title. Wow, this is great. It captures it, what I want to do. And then here, I want to say, just write down what the page title is, and if title, no, I want that. I want this. If title 1 equals to, or I'll say contains Google, then just print title 1 contains Google, else just say title does not contain Google. I will call you back here. I'll probably just need one more closing. Everything is good. So now the last thing I want to add here is I want to say wait. I will say browser, since we want to close the browser. I'll say close.async. So now if I run this test as a debug, and here we're getting the page title. As we can see, it's Google, and it does say, and if we look at here, yep, title 1 contains Google, and then it closes the browser. That puts an end to our today's topic. So in this video, we installed Playwright in C#, set up a console application, console project, explain how browser context and page works. And in the next videos, we will cover more topics. Thank you.